Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you?
I could be better.
Well, you are better, because under Protocol 46 under dash heading 792, all the protocols say that you are fine. So, in fact, you are fine. I'm sure you may...
But that is only for active officers, and I'm not an active officer.
Well, I've got a phaser, so I win. We are Yum Yum Podcast. We are Yum Yum because of the iconic line of dialogue Yum Yum from season 2 of the delicious, dare I say, Yum Yum series Star Trek Discovery. A character called Commander Nan uttered the words Yum Yum, and it was glorious. So we had to name ourselves after it. I'm Ryan, that's Rachel. We are talking short treks this time round, Rachel.
Season 2 of them.
The second batch of short treks. And of course, this is different, isn't it? This isn't a rewatch for us. This is first time viewing. Everything else has been a rewatch, but this first time viewing, because as mentioned on a previous short treks discussion, we did not get advertised them and or get them freely available down here in Australia. So a bit of hunting and gathering and researching after things to find out that they even existed, let alone
Little bit of VPN usage.
Or is there? So we had to go and find them to watch for this one. Rachel, what are the short treks in general? What's the idea of them? Just to kind of fill everyone in a bit on what they are, because people maybe like us and not even know about what short treks are.
They are short, mini episodes that are put up on CBS All Access in between the seasons of Star Trek Discovery, and usually have some connection to Star Trek Discovery, or at the very least the broader world of Star Trek.
Yes, that is it. They're shorts in the world of Star Trek, primarily whatever ones allow them to reuse costumes and sets.
So each story was designed to be an individual story that if you watch it in and of itself, you're going to have a really satisfying experience.
So we are going to be talking about the second batch of short treks. Spoilers for all of those if you have not seen any of them and you worry about getting spoiled on the twists and turns of each one of them. Well, here we are. We're going to start chatting about them. So
And
ye have
potential
been
spoilers for
Season 3
Season 3
and Star
any
Trek
other,
Picard.
and any other Star Trek.
Mainly
stuff.
Star Trek Picard, I would say.
Yeah, we'll
So-
get to that.
Rachel,
Yeah.
what are the list of short treks that we were slathered up with this time? There's 6 of them, so they gave us 2 more than the previous.
Okay, so the first episode is Q&A.
Yep, and then the second one was The Trouble with Edward.
Episode 3, Ask Not.
Then 4 is Ephraim and Dot.
5 is The Girl Who Made the Stars.
And 6, lucky number 6, the one that ties it to Star Trek Picard, Children of Mars. Which in that one, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but in that one, they had a cover of a David Bowie song, and it wasn't even Life on Mars.
No,
The one that you think it would be.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
Okay, so first up, we've already covered our history, so are we ready to get started on the first episode?
Yeah, I'm ready to discuss what we watched first and our general thoughts on it.
Okay, Q&A originally aired on October 5th of 2019.
A simpler time.
This one's 14 minutes.
Yeah.
And the description that IMDb offers up is Ensign Spock's first day aboard the USS Enterprise doesn't go as planned when he and Number 1 are unexpectedly stuck together in a turbo lift.
Great idea. It's actually a great idea for a short in the Star Trek world. Outside of our reservations about how we feel in regards to them grabbing these old school characters and recontextualizing them and giving them oh, our show gave the meaning for why the characters were like this, which this short trek definitely does do. Just the basic concept of two people stuck in a room together, and they have to overcome the challenges of getting out of there, but also by doing that, they learn about each other, and we, the audience, learn about them as well. Great idea for a short trek. It's simple, it's to the point. I didn't like it, though. I didn't like it.
No.
I felt like I didn't learn very much about either of the characters that I didn't already know. That is the big problem with the short trek is I already know who Spock is, so this isn't really giving me any new insight into Spock. And I don't know who number one is because she was like a tertiary character in an unaired pilot from over 50 years ago. So this short trek could have done a really great job of showing us more so who number one is. But I feel like what we got of her in season 2 is this, and there's not like much else there that I felt like I really garnered here. I went, ooh, I want to see more of number one.
Can we take a little bit of a detour? Because I think it helps illustrate this point.
Oh, yeah, fire away.
So I was just like, oh, there's actually trivia points listed for this episode. Did you take a look at these?
No, but I imagine that they're going to be trivia points like, this is a reference to this episode of Star Trek, the original series. Spock was yelling at the start because in the unaired episode of The Cage, Leonard Nimoy didn't know how to perform Spock, and he was yelling and smiling and giving emotions and blah, 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 blah. Is that the kind of bullshit trivia it's got? Because
for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
So the first one is the Q&A is the first episode in Star Trek ever scored by a female composer.
Okay. I really felt it. Oh, I remember that score so well. I'm lying. I don't remember it.
It's the second appearance of the song I Am the Very Modern Major General.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure Picard sang it, if I'm not mistaken.
I am the very model of a modern major general. I've information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. No, I can't do this.
Yes, you can.
I cannot sing in front of people.
You were terrific. You were a little off pitch, but I think I can take care of that. Okay, the fortune is a modern major general.
What did you think of this episode, Rachel?
I didn't like that it was so sexual.
How so?
I don't know, but just for me, they seem to be playing up a sexual chemistry between these two characters.
Of Spock and number one?
Yes.
Of Una and Spock?
Yep.
Is Spock not allowed to get his freaky on?
Spock can get his Spock out anytime that he likes. But it just didn't feel like that was what the episode was deliberately going for in a way.
What was it going for?
It was a weird subtext
Maybe
of the dialogue that they had and the interactions that they had.
Oh, don't forget the facial expressions.
Yeah. So it was like the performances were going in one direction, where it's like, oh, are they gonna fuck? Are they not gonna fuck? And then the text is them just having really dry scientific conversations and very short question answer, no discussion of anything, just question, answer, question, answer.
For like 14 minutes. What did you get out of it? When the episode finished, when the short trek finished, what was the point of it? What did you get?
I got nothing. I don't think I really got anything out of any of them. That's why I keep on trying to find other things to talk about, because I don't have anything to actually say about the episode itself.
The actual meat of the episode of this short trek is very boring. It is them in a turbo lift that they keep calling an elevator. I don't know why. And it's just them, her answering questions, him asking questions, and that.
But then
She starts to sing "Very Modern of Modern Major General."
him some questions.
Yeah, that's the twist. She asks him questions, he answers her, and then she tells him the meaning of being a Starfleet officer in command. Then she gives her embarrassing secret because she's learned his. And the two characters bond over the fact that they both know certain things about one another that nobody else knows. And that is okay.
But they have secrets together now.
That
means that they're bonded for life. Because that's what friendship is. Keeping each other's secrets.
It's fine. It just isn't very engaging. The questions aren't that deep. They're not. The most interesting thing that they could have explored in this short trek was a throwaway gag in which Spock says in a very logical fashion about the Prime Directive being this morally outrageous thing to uphold.
Don't think about it.
And she's like, shut up about that. And that could have been an interesting discussion to show the two characters' viewpoints as people and as officers. But instead, it's like, well, the computer's matrix thing for the replicators is named after you. Your name's Una. That's not a question, Spock.
I made it.
That's not a question, Spock. That's just my name.
Yeah, she made it. We get it.
I'll tell you what I got out of it. I got.
You got something?
No, there is something here. And it's only, again, who's this show for? Is it for people who know Star Trek or people who don't? Because this is what I got out of it. I know Star Trek. The point that we got given was Spock was coming out of he's in a weird place. It's his first day on the Enterprise. He's not the Spock we know, but he's not the Spock from Discovery either. He's got emotions. He's smiling. He's yelling. He's doing all these kind of crazy things. And she asks him to be a Starfleet officer. She demands of him to ask questions and queries and to force him into being the mold of the Starfleet officer, correct?
The model of the
modern Major General. Yes. And then she questions him about, you smiled, that's odd. And she gives him the whole thing of, hey, it's okay to have these things about yourself, but you
keep them to yourself.
But keep them to yourself. And what that says to me is, she's the reason for Spock being so involved in himself to the point in which when the original series comes around, the whole journey of Captain Kirk and Spock's relationship is Kirk trying to break that mold out of Spock, trying to say, hey, Spock, let your freaky come out the human side. But because of number one on his first day said, hey, keep that shit inside.
Be more Vulcan than human.
So in a
that's
way,
what people expect of you because you have pointy ears.
No, but it's not in a way of a bigoted way.
No.
It is just she's trying to model him in a certain position that later on, the
that's
original
her
series...
vision of authority.
That's her vision of command. And we see in the original series, Kirk doesn't abide by that, and he's trying to break through to Spock in several ways. And that's what I get out of this, is the meta thing of, well, in the original series, Kirk's relationship with Spock is like this, and that's only because of number one and Michael.
Yeah. See,
instead of what we had before, which is Spock's whole entire life growing up in Vulcan with a father like Sarek and his half-human side and then self-esteem. No. It's because two people gave him one moment that made him go down this path, and it's like, oh, number one said, keep your freaky in, and Michael said, you stupid little half-breed, and those are the reasons that Spock is Spock and nothing else, not all these nuanced, layered things that build upon each other. It is just because of these two incident points.
Yeah, see, I think I ignored that because I wanted Spock to have agency in his own character development.
There's nothing else to discuss other than one thing in this that really threw me for a loop. He asks, what are the three abiding things about Pike?
And they're facts about Picard?
Well, one of them is that it completely threw me. Because the other two can abide to any Star Trek captain. They're all very basic things, right? They're all very basic things.
They're pretty Picard-y things.
No, one of them's more of a Kirk thing. Rachel.
Okay.
The last one she says is he's unsentimental except for about horses. Every single short trek we get of Pike, as well as the fucking season 2, would you describe him as an unsentimental man?
No.
So what's number 1 fucking talking about, and why don't you think that?
Because he's emotional and sentimental and shows attachment
Yeah.
to all of these people.
And he often
An
talks longingly about his
unsenti-
own past.
An unsentimental man wouldn't stop in the middle of a fucking battle to say, thanks for doing that thing, and thanks for doing that thing, and Spock, I have no words.
Yeah.
That's not what an unsentimental person would do.
But this is Pike from earlier than when we met him, so he must have been unsentimental then, except for when we fucking meet him at the end of the short trek and he seems like the most warm, loving... See, that description is perfect for Picard. Minus, don't even mention the horse thing, because that's also Picard. But that whole sentiment there, that's Picard. Picard isn't, like, completely shut off. He has sentiment for things. Like, he loves archaeology, he likes Crusher, but he is a very reserved, quiet, he likes things done in this. That's how you would describe him. But Pike is kind of weird, and I don't know why they put that there.
No.
Because even Anson Mount doesn't act like that when we meet him at the end of the short trek, to even back up that point of, well, he was like that before Discovery's interpretation of him, you see. This was him earlier too. He must have been a bit of a hard-ass back then, except for in this short trek and all the other ones we see, he never demonstrates any of that behavior, so it's kind of just odd.
All of those statements feel like they more apply to Una than Pike.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Because we do see her as being unsentimental, hearing each person out,
Yeah.
her ability to change her mind. Are we going to discuss the random sexual undertones of various points in this one, and then when we see Una and Spock again, that they do this more?
I don't know what it is. It's not like they have lines. It's not like there's certain lines they can pull from. It's just the way that they physically interact or not interact and look at each other, and the way that they deliver certain lines. There definitely is an air of sexual charge between the two, and I don't know
the point
why.
where it really tipped over for me, because I was noticing it and I was like, wait, is this just me? Am I just picking up on something that's not really there? And then he stares at her thighs.
Well,
when they're around his shoulders, like he's like, what's happening here?
but can't Spock
What's happening in my pants?
But can't Spock be horny?
What gets me so excited about the story that we get to tell with Spock this season is that it is the unwritten chapter of Spock. This is not the Spock that you know from the beginning of TOS. It's pre-TOS. He is not that formed Vulcan yet.
But this feels like all it's there for is to set up the dynamics that will be in place for their Strange New Worlds TV show.
That we still haven't got.
And, you know, even if it does get made, it's just like, okay, is this what the short treks were supposed to be? Because then you have some of the other ones, and they're not like that. It's like, I don't know, I kind of wish that they were more decisive in terms of, are the short treks important pieces of tome that I'm supposed to ingest before the main piece of text? Or are they fun little throwaway short films that just are world building and kind of fun? Because this batch of short treks, it's both of them, and it feels like it's both of them. It's hard to say it's both of them because we haven't actually got Strange New Worlds, but then we do have one for Picard at the end, and Picard came out, and it's just... Well, it's very strange to me that this short trek, instead of actually developing our understanding of these two characters, what it did develop was, this will be the dynamic between the two characters in the future series that's going to come out years later. And, like, who knows, even by the time they make the Strange New World show, maybe they'll have changed the dynamic between the two of them. Who knows, maybe they're setting up here that maybe Spock and Una will have a romantic relationship of some sort. Why not? We haven't seen Spock do that.
No.
For a whole series.
No. But speaking of tonal issues, do you want to move on to the second episode?
Mm-hmm. In the first short treks, they had a comedy one.
Yes.
And everyone liked that Harry Mudd comedy one. So they said, hey, we're going to do comedy in Star Trek. Alex Kurtzman stood there.
It was definitely not because of Rainn Wilson that episode worked.
His direction and
writing.
No, he didn't write it. He just directed it, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure the guy did short treks wrote it. I mean, the guy who did Lower Decks wrote it. In the first batch, they said, hey, we have a comedy one. Maybe we should bring comedy back into the second batch because Star Trek's never had comedy before. There's never been any outright comedies in Star Trek except for literally the one that this is homaging, which is This Is the Trouble with Edward, which is a take on The Trouble with Tribbles from the original series, which was a comedy episode. It was a light, fluffy comedy episode about a bunch of tribbles on a space station. This one, The Trouble with Edward, is, like a newly minted captain is excited to take command of this ship, blah, 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 and she meets Edward Larkin, who's a mad scientist who wants to use tribbles for food. Like, my big concern with this one is it almost works. I think that out of the short treks of this batch, this was the most obvious one to do, not in terms of the comedy and the reference of the tribbles, but the idea of this new captain, her first day on the her new ship, and she has to confront a crew member who she can't figure out, and she has to work a dynamic to accommodate them whilst also having them accommodate her. Very Reg Barkley type of approach to a storyline. But instead, the episode doesn't do that. Instead, it does other things. So this is the comedy one. Did it make you laugh?
No.
Liar. You laughed. You were laughing when you were watching this.
Oh, I was laughing at it.
No. You got a genuine laugh. You had a genuine chuckle when he was talking about how they were just made of pure meat. The way he delivered that line, you had a genuine chuckle at that. And that was okay, because I actually thought that was, like, the guy who plays Edward... Bob from Bob's Burgers.
Archer.
Dr. Kat's son. He's a good actor, comedic actor. He knows how to deliver those lines with the comedy punches. So I'm not going to say that this wasn't at all funny, but I just don't know what the goal of this short trek was in the story elements of it, because it sets it up one way and then kind of follows through with it, then kind of abandons it, because
I got most thrown off when it goes into the comedy horror section of, like, people drowning in tribbles.
Which could be funny if we knew what the state... Okay. Who's this story about? Whose story is this short trek?
It's meant to be the new captain's.
Is it?
I think so. Like, she's a framing character.
So is it her story?
But...
Or is it Edward's story?
I don't know.
There you go. I wish it was focused more on her and Edward was this peripheral character. But we follow Edward so much during all of this. And again, I think he's a great comedic actor. I enjoyed some of his zingers and some of his kind of nervy crew member Reg Barkley light type of deal. But I wanted it to follow her. But also, I don't, because she was fucking terrible. I thought that performance was garbage. I thought the characters were written like trash.
Did you like her better when she had anime eyes in a different movie?
Yeah. What?
Isn't she Alita from Alita Battle Angel?
I don't know.
You have watched that movie? Yeah.
Yeah, like I could recognize the CG woman in real form.
And don't forget to see Alita Battle Angel in theaters February 14th.
I got so frustrated with this one because comedy basics are being thrown out the window for just laziness. She should have been the straight person. but she's the comedy lady as well. She's the one who's just like, oh, my conversation's over, blah, 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 blah. That American type humor in which everyone has to keep fucking talking and talking. She should have been the straight person in this. She should have been a straight-laced, by the books, try to be diplomatic captain who actually feels like a captain. She feels like some millennial who's just dressed up in cosplay. And she's like, hey, look at me, I'm dressed as a Starfleet captain. What if I said dick jokes? If she was actually a proper Captain Pike-esque type character, doesn't have to be Pike, but just an actual Starfleet officer dealing with someone like Edward, then that would be entertaining. And you know how we know that to be the case? Because that's fucking Reg Barclay's storylines every single time he rocks up. Every single time Reg Barclay rocks up, what makes Reg work even better, because you could say Reg Barclay is a little cartoony, or a little bit too over the top, or a little bit too unrealistic to be in Starfleet. What grounds him is he has to bounce off of people like Geordie LaForge, or Captain Picard, or Deanna Troi. 3 characters who in the TNG are the most grounded, normal characters. It's not like he's always bouncing off of Data, who's a wacky character. It's not like he's always bouncing off of Riker, who's a bit of a goofball himself, or Q or anything. You need someone to be the straight-laced Starfleet person who's trying to get through to this person's insecurities and failing, and that's where the comedy can come in, and also the human factor for either of the characters. In Reg Barclay's stories, we feel sorry for Reg, more so than we feel sorry for Geordie LaForge. In this, I wanted to feel sorry for her. This is her first day, she's got this idiot, and she's trying to get through to him, but at no point did she actually ever try to be a good captain. She just always said no and just dismissed him and just never tried with him. Never tried. And I thought the arc was supposed to be she does that and then realizes, oh, I need to be diplomatic. I need to actually listen to Captain Pike's advice, that there are going to be people who are different to me. But then at the end, it is, he was just an idiot. Boom, boom, boom. And then the comedy music plays. You know, that lame stock music style comedy music that tells you everything's funny because it's going boom, 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 boom in the background. That's... This one just angers me so much because it's so close to being a really comprehensive, short, funny, interesting little story about a new captain interacting with an idiotic crew member, but instead we follow him around more than we do her. And we don't really learn anything about him either. We don't learn anything about anything except for this is how Tribbles became Tribbles because reference.
I think one of the major problems that I had across the short treks, this particular batch of them, is the sound.
You mean the music and sound effects? Oh my god, the sound effects. They were so
and
cartoony in all of them.
Mixing as well. Like with this one, I'm pretty sure it's the one where it has a random Bing Crosby song. And it's just like, what the fuck is this doing here? Like they keep on, particularly in the short treks, making random references to older pop culture.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, yeah, like the funny face one from like the first batch
Calypso
was like, okay, I get it, I get what you wanted to do.
It matched
with
thematically.
that,
It matched thematically.
but that song felt so random.
Yeah,
It's
Johnny
just like,
Appleseed, yeah.
It's just like, okay, you're trying to set up a tone, and maybe like a clashing of the tone between the song choice and the visuals that are being shown, but it just ends up feeling like they forgot to change it. They went like, oh, well, maybe this song will work, and then they just never bothered to find one that actually properly...
No, they were trying to go for the comedy juxtaposition of horrific stuff going on,
yes,
goofy,
but that
old-fashioned song.
At least for me, doesn't work in that role. There has to be something that would have worked better. But they went with that one because people know it.
I didn't know it. Here's the thing too, Rachel. maybe the song would work if you found what was happening on screen at all funny.
I would have less problems with it if it had already gotten me on board. But it just made me more annoyed.
This one had the potential to have some humor. The idea of making tribbles and making them food and this
and
and
the
this.
casting as Edward
was
good.
fine. I feel like they should have dialed him back at points a little, but again, he should have been a more tertiary character, and it should have been in her
the
point of
time
view.
management.
Yeah, because as good as that guy is, it should have been her story, but it felt like, oh, it's his story too, by the way. He should have just been a little thing on the periphery.
It's her story for the first and the last scene, and his for the middle.
Instead of having, you know that scene where he's standing next to the replicators and the guy's like, oh, everyone loves the new captain, and he's like, I don't. And silence, 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 silence. Nobody does. And the guy goes, actually, everyone kind of likes her. And then silence, silence, silence. I don't. Again, instead of that, you know what would have been great? You had that meeting in which she dismissed him, and you see that shot of him, and he's kind of frustrated, and then you have that sequence in which he's trying to work on the tribble, he's decided to mutate it, and she's in the background, blah. You know what would have been great? If you had it from her perspective, and you see him in the background doing that, and you're like, oh, okay, or have a quick shot, and she's like, dismisses it. I would have loved a scene in which she's gone to her office, she's finally getting to sit in her ready room for the first ever time. She's sitting there, and then she gets the messages about how she's already had complaints. And you see it from her perspective, and you're like, oh, God. And then she has to call in Edward. You know, like, again, it's coming from her perspective. It would have been funny and frustrating when we get in her shoes, but instead, we're in his shoes, and we're in her shoes, and neither of them are that interesting or fulfilling because we're spending time on both of them in ways that are not actually fulfilling.
Set up to be a dual narrative.
No.
That's not what it's set up to be. So it ends up feeling like, well, this is a mistake.
Yeah, or at least a mismanagement of focus of things. Because what's the tone? Oh, it's supposed to be funny, okay, but within the comedy episodes of Star Trek, because unlike what Alex Kurtzman says, there have been outright comedies in Star Trek. I mean, there's a whole fucking movie that's a comedy. It's, you know, the one with the whales. They still have a consistency of what comedy tone they're going for. When you watch a Ferengi episode of Deep Space Nine, there's a consistent comedy tone in there, but this one, it was, oh, this is an office place sci-fi comedy setting. Okay, cool. And then it turned into like a horror comedy, sci-fi comedy, and then it turned into this, and then turned into that, and you lost track of what was there other than, oh, isn't it kind of funny to see a woman drown in tribbles? Like, oh, that's funny. And again, it's a comedy, it's kind of hard to break it down because comedy is very subjective, and if you found it funny, we're not denying it. I just feel like from a structure and story standpoint, there was no arc either. She didn't learn a lesson.
No.
And the lesson was, people are idiots. Ha ha ha. It's like, oh,
they
okay,
didn't
boring.
Know what the point of the story was.
I know I keep bringing it up, but Reg Barkley, great character. He was supposed to be a one-off character. And they originally had it in mind that he would have a nervous breakdown in the final scene of his episode, and he would be kicked off and we would never see him again. But due to the fact of the casting of Dwight Schultz, and they realized that that wouldn't be a very satisfying arc for this character, he became a recurring staple in Star Trek and one of the most beloved characters in Star Trek because he's one of the most human and relatable characters. I'm not saying that we fucking needed it for this short trek, but an arc would have been nice. A consistent, clear arc instead of, it's funny because she said, he's an idiot.
A purpose for its existence also would have been appreciated.
Mm.
And I think an arc would have gone a long way to help with that. Because it would be like, well, this story needed to be told.
This conversation's over. You're dismissed.
Right, but...
This is the end of the conversation.
Captain, if I could...
You can't.
Right, but I had this as
The conversation's over. That's the end.
Well, technically, the conversation is not over because I could keep talking, and then the conversation is
I don't know how you made it this far in your career behaving like this.
You think I'm dumb?
This is why I ended the conversation.
We then move on to episode 3, which is Ask Not.
Okay. What happened in Ask Not? I don't even know how you describe it because it is so simplistic that an idea of me even giving more than 2 words synopsis of it feels like I've given it more credit of how detailed it is.
See, what 2 words would you go with?
Not good.
See, I thought you were going to try and summarize the plot in 2 words.
Yeah.
Yeah, the snood.
Short track.
It's not good. What is this?
When an attack on Starbase 28 leaves a surprise prisoner under Cadet Theris Sudu's watch, she is faced with making a decision that may threaten her standing in Starfleet.
Yeah, it's a test.
Yep.
That's my 2 words.
It's a test.
Yeah, that's 3. It's a
Yeah.
test. We knew it less than 50 seconds in.
Yeah, as soon as we saw
I mean,
Pike's hooded face.
we're like, oh, it's Pike. And then they tried to pretend like it wasn't Pike. And then they showed, oh, it's Pike. And we're like, oh, this must be a test.
Yeah. We're like, okay.
And then it spent 8 minutes trying to convince us it wasn't. And then it did reveal it was a test. This is some random cadet is in some scenario in which he thinks, oh, everything's going to go wrong. And Pike comes in and basically says, hey, give me command of this situation so I can take care of this evil alien enemy that you have a traumatic history with that's about to kill your husband on another spaceship. And he does all this stuff is all in testing of her duty and her honor and her allegiance to Starfleet. And they even say, hey, this may seem inhumane, but war is inhumane. And then Pike shrugs his shoulders and says, here's engineering. There was no reason for this one to exist. Out of all of them, this was the one that I think didn't need to exist, other than what we said before, which is they're setting up, if they do have a show for Pike and crew, this woman would be in the show. Maybe she would have some fun interactions, and or it's just setting up that Pike's this kind of guy.
But it was Una's idea.
Oh, it was Una's
And
idea.
This is the episode that gives us the oddly charged statement from Spock, which is, we have expected not to get mercy from number 1.
In the bedroom, my cheeks don't get mercy from number 1. Boom, boom. That's why I'm standing so stiff. This one is so short on stuff that all we can say about it is it's a waste of time. Skip it. That's it. There's nothing else to say. I'll say one thing. I said this when we were watching it, Rachel. I think this is so apt. This story here is not something you would put in an episode. It's not something you need as a short. Yeah. This is one piece of line of dialogue that this character would say in Strange New Worlds as a brief statement of, oh, when I first met Captain Pike, he tested my elite, and that's all you need. You don't need an 8 to 10 minute fucking short trek to do this. This was just so pointless.
And Ensign Mount's performance is fine.
I mean, can you say it was a performance? Because all he was saying was jargon. He was just saying, under protocol section 31B7249, says a superior officer. That's not a performance. He
gets
just
a little
things.
bit more at the end when he's giving her the tour.
Oh, when he's allowed to actually be Captain Pike?
Yeah, so we get a little bit because, it's
And
better
she-
than Una and Spock.
She was fine. The main chick
Cadet
was fine. Everyone,
Okay.
it was a waste.
I think we always think of the short treks as like, these are the scenes that are just as important as what's going on in the main shows, but that you wouldn't actually have time for.
Short treks made history. They gave us an animated episode, not just 1, 2, one after the other.
Woo, sure.
Episode 4 of the season 2 or second batch of short treks was Ephraim and Dot, which is a story about a random tardigrade, a different one.
Short Treks tries to be Wally.
Short Treks tries to be Wally along with Avengers Endgame, in terms of going down memory lane of, hey, look, all of these cool events you remember from Star Trek's past, here it is, but you didn't know that there was a secret little war going on between a little robot and a little tardigrade. This is a cartoon, so obviously, you don't have to worry about canon stuff and logic and rules in the same way you would with these other short treks. It's a cute little silent comedy-esque cartoon adventure in which you have, it's spy v spy kind of, where you have a creature attacking another creature, but by the end they learn that they're actually friends. Like you said, Wally. The animation style I thought was fine.
Yeah.
It was cute enough.
I did not mind the way that this episode looked. I did not enjoy it when they mimicked Discovery's direction style.
With the TOS, what happened in this? Like, is that it? Just references. Is this entertaining?
Tardigrade lays eggs, gets loses her eggs, and then tries to get them back, and then they hatch.
The majority of this is the tardigrade witnessing things that happen in the original series. Very little of it is actually the cat and mouse game between Dot and Ephraim, which you'd think would be the thing that would be the focus, right? And I ask, obviously this is for children, and I know that, and obviously this is aimed towards people who know Star Trek as well, and let's say there is a child out there who knows all of these references. They're pretty cool. Not the universal, but they're pretty cool. But I still have to ask, who's this one for? Because the references are references, but that's not actually material. You actually have to have something there. And then what they do have there, there's so little of it. There's not a lot of physical slapstick humor. There's not lots of fun ways that they use the animation of these two things going against each other or anything. It's just, there's so little of that.
But there's triples.
And there's Khan. And there's Space Lincoln.
And there's Sulu having the sword fight. And then
there's Search for Spock. And I just don't know. Like, I get the idea of it, but I just don't know which ones it's supposed to, like with the Trouble with Edward, which ones is supposed to be? Is this supposed to be like an Avengers Endgame little thing in which you have this sci-fi little cute adventure that's like a walk down memory lane of all these references to Star Trek's past that a person like me would get? Something aimed towards adults.
Yeah.
Or is this supposed to be kids like 4 to 6 years old,
Ryan,
sci-fi cute little thing where a cute little monster mum is trying to protect her eggs from a nasty little robot? It's trying to be both, and it doesn't, again, like Trouble with Edward, it doesn't really benefit one or the other enough, where they just both kind of come up half-baked.
Why can't it be Adventure Time style, where it looks cute and it could be enjoyable for children, but mostly adults watch it?
Because Adventure Time had story, characters, and themes and plots.
But why would you expect that from a short?
I don't have to expect that from a short. I want this to be more like a Looney Tunes thing if it's going to go that way of physical action, using the animation, having these two things fight against each other or hide or run away from each other, but it also wants to be, hey, do you remember the show from over 50 years ago? I'm sure a fucking 4-year-old kid was riveted by the scene of Space Seed that they animated poorly. I'm sure a 4-year-old kid really understood that when they flew past Space Lincoln and Space Lincoln shook his fist angrily at them and started screaming at them, that was a lame reference because Space Lincoln was actually a good guy in that original series episode. I'm sure a 4-year-old was really ruining at that reference. Like I said, go one or the other. Make this a pure reference fest, just go full balls to the walls, or make this a sci-fi animated action-y thing, like, just one or the other, but it's pointless. Are any of these short treks not pointless? Because we said that some of the first ones in the some of the ones in the first batch felt like they were self-contained, yet if they did revisit them, it would be fun, and we felt like there was stuff that you could get out of them as an individual viewing. But these ones, it's like, what did I do with my time? You don't want to answer? Okay. Next one.
No, I don't have an answer. Because I don't think that there was anything here. And I do think that we would feel differently if Strange New Worlds existed. Because a lot of these are linking up to that. And since that doesn't exist, like, we would have found more where it's like, okay, well, this actually led to something. This linked to something else. But the way that it is, there's nothing.
And the thing with these short treks, especially with Children of Mars, is that, yes, it definitely sets up what's to come in the first season of Picard, but they all have to stand alone as really beautifully told, contained stories in their own right, so that even if you know nothing about either Star Trek or what's coming in Star Trek, you're still going to have a satisfying experience with the short treks.
The fifth short trek, Rachel, that we had to watch and discuss, and we have to discuss, was The Girl Who Made the Stars, which was another animated one, but a different animation style?
Yeah, it was 3D. It just reminds me of YouTube Kids animation.
It reminds me of those weird animated kids shows you see on Netflix that nobody's ever talked about, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm sure some poor Korean animator was slaving over the big eyes on this random kids cartoon that nobody watches.
When a lightning storm in space scares a young Michael Burnham, her father aims to ease her fear with a mythical story about a brave little girl who faced her own fears head on. This one's only 8 minutes. It's a really shitty bedtime story.
I know we're spoiling ahead, but this was the worst one. For me. This was the worst. I can't... There was nothing. The animation wasn't even that great. The acting was terrible. The actual story itself was too long, too overblown, and not at all that engaging. And this is Star Trek.
But her dad's the actual, like, the voice of the dad, the actual dad.
And yes, and Michael Burnham, the actress's husband in real life. Doesn't matter. He didn't do a good job in the voice acting. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who it is. He didn't do a good job voice acting. They didn't do a good job writing. The animation for him looked terrible. The story itself was boring. Why was this a Star Trek short?
Because they could.
But why was this a Star Trek short? Why was this a Star Trek short? What about this?
They had a quota to fill.
This felt like it could have been any animated kids short. Especially one in a fantastical setting, not like Star Trek sci-fi setting. This was like... This short trek... Out of all the new Star Trek material we've got, I don't feel bad to say this. This wasn't Star Trek. This was just some random animated short story bullshit that they got, and they just put Michael Burnham's name on it. I try not to be a snobby purist and a gatekeeper or whatever and saying, oh, this is and isn't Star Trek, but this is like the only one that I feel comfortable saying. When I watched it, I said, this isn't Star Trek. This is whatever the fuck it wants to be, but this isn't fucking Star Trek. This was just a fucking waste of time. Again, a waste of time. This is some random kids' storybook kind of nonsense, and I don't know why this is a Star Trek short. Short Treks has the potential for so much greatness. We've been saying that the whole time. We've been saying it since the first one. And this one, it doesn't even use the concept of what Short Treks is. It feels like it just grabs something pre-existing and just changed the names around. completely, utterly... Ugh. What did you think?
I thought that it was really boring and that it didn't even manage to be visually impressive, but I thought that it was interesting and spectacular.
Why didn't it succeed for us? And evidently for so many people, it's the lowest rated. Is it just because this doesn't belong in Star Trek?
Yeah, I think that that's a large part of it. And I don't know, I think a part of the excitement about the idea of short treks is getting to know other characters a little bit better. So getting to know Michael Baby Burnham isn't as interesting because it's not like we're getting to know her dad. It's just like, oh, okay, she was scared of the dark during a lightning storm in space, and then her dad
Just
told
let that
her a
one sink in for
story.
a sec, yeah.
Her dad told her a story, and now she doesn't need a nightlight.
But also, since it's an animated one and there's all these like Easter eggs and references and tidbits to the previous ones, it doesn't even feel like this is a canon thing anyway, because she's hugging a stuffed tardigrade toy, which is like a little cute wink nod. This does feel like, this is just something we made. You don't have to take this so seriously. So even at that point of, well, we're learning something about Michael Burnham, it's not really, because it does have that air of, this is just something that we made. You don't have to take this as serious.
Because I think in the promotional material that we saw, I think it said that these two shorts aren't from the main universe that we see.
They're just
they're not mirror universe. They're just another version of the universes.
They're just things that the show wanted to make.
And there's so many different forms that these shorts can take. I'd love to do a musical, for example. There's just so many other ways. I'd love to do one in black and white and figure out what that means. And I don't know, I could probably think of 50 different ways that we could tell stories and 50 different little crevices of the Star Trek universe to explore.
Okay, can we move on to episode 6 then?
Children of Mars.
I hated this. Like, I agreed that the girl who made the stars is probably the worst one, but I hated this.
This one?
I flat out fucking hate it.
So the story of this one is these two girls on Mars.
No, they're both on Earth. Their parents are working on Mars.
They're children of people of Mars.
Yes. They're not even on Mars, so the title doesn't even...
No, they're children of Martians. So these...
But then neither of them...
Can we just get to it?
No.
It doesn't fucking matter.
It does.
Right? It doesn't fucking matter. This one sucked, okay? We agree, it sucked. It's about these two stupid little girls played by terrible actresses, or ones who were directed terribly, because they don't even have barely any lines of dialogue, but they can't even make them run in a way that seems natural. So in fact, I'm not going to say it's the actress's fault. Whoever the director of this, whoever it was, or the many of them, it feels like, whatever tendrils crawled out of CBS to make these girls act in this, was fucking atrocious. It's about these two girls who are bullies to one another. They have a little kung fu fist fight, and then they bond over the fact that they witnessed their parents getting massacred on Mars by unknown forces, which we later find out in Star Trek Picard were robots gone crazy because a secret Romulan cult who are afraid of AIs programmed the AIs on Mars to destroy the fucking spaceships that were being made to help the Romulans get off Romulus before it got exploded by the sun, because the Romulans the secret Romulan cult want to make sure that the Romulans live, because if they keep making AIs and if the robots get intelligent, a superior alien race is going to come down and destroy all life. So how do they do this? They make sure to kill the one thing that's actually going to save all the Romulans from getting killed. Very smart. That's what this is. This is a prelude. This is a little wink and nod. A little, hey, what's Star Trek Picard? Look, there's a picture of Patrick Stewart on the screen. Look over there. There's no actual story here. You don't get to know who these little girls are. You don't give a shit about these little girls or their parents or anything that's going on. They just play David Bowie, except they don't even get David Bowie. They get some other cover of it. And it's one of those stupid trailer covers in which the song is spoken with very little music and it's just someone whisper singing it the whole fucking time. They don't even, they use Heroes. Heroes, a love song, by the way, or at least one that's about relationships. They don't even use Life on Mars for the one about the children who are worried about the life on Mars. Fuck. That's Children of Mars. You wanted to hear it, there you go, Rachel. You didn't like it, I didn't like it, it was a fucking mess.
You hear it and you hear how Gabriel has interpreted that song and how different it sounds from Bowie's version. And what a screaming cry it is of pain. It felt like, for me, it just expressed what those girls were going through. And that in a way, they are heroes at the end of the day. They are the heroes who survive this thing, and their life is going to be about finding their best selves moving forward, which is why we end with the moment of the two of them holding hands.
What about the Vulcan that was crying? There was a Vulcan that was like literal tears strolling down his face because, oh no, they've nuked Mars or whatever.
Well, they immediately know that it's a sense because we see that from the banners on the news footage that they project for all of these children to watch.
It's just called...
knowing that these children would have parents on Mars.
Why was this the worst one for you?
So one is that it's connected to Picard. And I hate Picard even more than I hate Discovery.
The series.
We
like the character. We liked the character.
We liked the character. Very, very important word to change the meaning of that sentence. And then the other is the way that it's constructed.
Yeah.
So we have the little bit of dialogue at the beginning with the girls having two different kind of responses. Like one is enjoying getting to talk to her mum,
and the other one's abandoned.
And they lick each other's noses. Well,
their own noses.
But they each lick their noses.
Because they're aliens.
And then the redhead one is pissed off at her dad that not going to come home at all and hangs up on him. So, and then we go into the Heroes song cover, and it goes on and on and on and on, and it goes over so many different scenes
of them beating the shit out of each other
and being like, they're just being petty bitches, and it's just like, well, yeah, that's children. That, like,
what
children
does the
do that.
Heroes have to do with the children being petty bitches to one another? I don't understand.
Nope, doesn't really work. And it's just like, well, yeah, we can be heroes, and it's just like, okay, if you're saying, well, they can make connection and be stronger together, and that's the point of the end of it. You do not have the song playing throughout the entire sequence of them bullying each other.
It's a weird...
And it's also just really strange contrivance that she is attacking her, because she, like, the other girl, so the redhead and the alien, right? The alien is the only alien child that we really see.
We see others, but they're not characters. I mean, none of them are characters, right?
No, but she's the main one that we see. So it's like, wait, is this meant to be like the redhead is being xenophobic?
Rachel, they didn't think about it that far. They just thought, wouldn't it be cool if two little girls did a kung fu action sequence to a cover song of David Bowie's Heroes?
Yes.
They didn't think about the implications about xenophobia or girl-on-girl violence being prepared. No.
Oh, yeah. Like, coming off the bat of the Queen message of the girl who made the stars, we get this. And then there's just so many things. It's like every decision felt like it made this worse. So we have that situation, and we have like the redhead girl getting the alien in trouble and getting her discipline points or something.
She did the Starship Troopers thing when Starship Troopers, when they were in class, Denise Richards was like drawing on a pad, or Dizzy or someone was drawing on a pad, and then they flicked it and it went over to the main guy's pad, and it was like two people kissing, and then bubblegum exploded on their faces, and the teacher looked in and went, "Hey, no love in my school," because Starship Troopers was a movie about fascism.
Yeah, and
but
this
is like,
made a little bit more sense.
And it had Michael Ironside.
And it had context. But
which
in
is
this,
for kings.
Yes. In this, we then get them, then they have their very awkward fight, which, you know, it should be awkward, you know. What do you think? Like, they're 9, maybe 10?
I don't know.
So 9-year-olds attacking each other in front of lockers, gonna be awkward.
Oh.
Especially in like a Starfleet style school where they
wear red blazers and shit. Yeah,
should be above that, so neither of them would be expected to be experienced fighters. But then they get dragged away, and then they're left in a lobby near each other unsupervised.
Well, the Vulcan was too busy crying.
Yeah, because everybody started watching the news footage that was coming in of the Synths attacking the base.
Would this have been better? Now, this doesn't mean it's better as a thing on its own, but this is tied to Star Trek Picard. We've watched this now after Picard, not before. Would this have been better in some way, shape, or form if one of the little girls was a character in Star Trek Picard,
Maybe.
and this was their tragic backstory of why they're bigoted towards
matter
synths?
a little bit more.
Like, wouldn't it have been great if in Star Trek Picard they had, like, one of the Starfleet people that is, like very, very anti what Picard's doing be one of the little girls grown up?
Yeah, like if one of Commander O's
Commodore
underlings
was this person, yeah. Instead of Narissa.
If the human was blonde and it was a young Agnes.
Yeah, but, you know, even then I don't think it would
that would
work.
have had to make more changes. But
yeah, but like, or even instead of having Narissa, the stupid Romulan lady, have one of these girls who's grown up and she's like got a boner against synths. Like, because you see her backstory, you can understand it more so than Narissa from Star Trek Picard, who's just like, I love having incestual sex because I've watched Game of Thrones. I'm evil Romulan. Blast them into space. At least this, you could have a villain with an understandable backstory. Like, one of the few things I liked about Batman v Superman was the fact that you saw Metropolis getting destroyed from Man of Steel, and you saw it from Bruce Wayne's perspective, and it totally brought you into why Bruce Wayne wants to fight Superman, because you see it from his perspective, this horrible event.
Understand how Superman can be constructed as a threat.
Yeah, and you could see that happening with this Children of Mars, but instead it's like, oh, this is just a random thing that happened to make you want to buy CBS All Access so that you can watch Star Trek Picard. And I don't know, when you revisit it, when you visit it after Star Trek Picard, like we have, it doesn't really have any punch because we know the stupid full picture of what happened on Mars, and it just makes it feel less intriguing or less like dramatic because, like I said before in my giant rant, what happened on Mars, you find out in Star Trek Picard, is so stupid to us that it doesn't mean anything to me when I watch it in this. In fact, I think it's kind of funny when the two girls hold hands and they reminisce about their parents, and all we get is the footage we saw earlier. So, like, you're coupling up horrific violence of, like, the air burning on Mars and people, like, burning to death and dying with the footage of that alien girl's mum licking her nose with her long CGI tongue, and I'm like, I don't know, the juxtaposition here is kind of weird. You know? Very odd.
That you're watching this intimate story between these two girls only to discover at the end that actually that day was one of the most critical days in Starfleet, and that their little story exists in a larger continuum, and that in fact what happened that plays such a huge part on Picard, the event that happened on Mars that plays such a huge part on Picard, is told through the prism of a very personal, on-the-ground story between two children. That it was just a really interesting way of looking at that event, right? We talked about all the 9/11 allegory that it is. And there is no more personal and devastating story than that kind of story. So it had to be told through the eyes of children, I think, for it to land.
Which one did you hate the least? Also known as which was the best one?
Trouble with Edward. I think it was the closest one to being competent. It still failed, but I think it's the closest one to achieving what it could have.
I think the one that I hated the least was Ephraim and Dot.
Okay, I mean, that's a good one too, I guess, and it's banger.
Like, just because the tonal inconsistencies and random just things thrown in the trouble with Edward pissed me off a little bit more than the ones in Ephraim and Dot because they went by a little bit faster.
But Ephraim and Dot's one made it look like Space Lincoln was an evil guy. They
I
didn't
know,
even
I-
get the reference right.
No, they didn't, but I liked the animation style, and I thought the eggs were cute, and that's at least a minor positive.
Short treks, as a general concept, we were a little bit more pro them in the first batch. We seem very anti them now. What has changed so much about the short treks to make us feel like they shouldn't make any more of them? Because of the first batch, we were like, look, they're not the greatest, but we could do
with this.
You could do something more. And a lot of the things that we wanted, they've kind of done here. But
It
they've
still killed
failed.
our hope. It killed our hope.
Do you want any more short treks?
No.
Do you want any more modern Star Trek?
No.
There you go. But we're going to watch season 3 soon, so prepare for that.
Just don't make me rewatch Picard.
Oh, we'll talk about that one day.
We can talk about it just as long as you don't make me rewatch that fucking show.
We will. We will.
If you want more of us, where can you find us, Ryan?
Let's take a back step. Pedal it back. Let's get a little less angry before we wrap this out. Because people love us being happy, you know? They love us feeling feelings.
Well, they can listen to us be happy on Patreon because we talk about things that we like there.
And, of course, the social medias. We're on all of those. YumYumPod. You can follow us and discuss your thoughts and all that kind of stuff on the things we've talked about in these short treks. Are we just being too negative? Probably. We have our email, yumyumpod@gmail.com. And that's it from us with these short treks. Like we said, we're going to be going through season 3 of Star Trek Discovery very shortly. So,
The burn?
The burn, Ham.